Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. Now, earlier this year, you may have heard an episode that we did with Kendrick Shope, episode 46, all about how to sell with authenticity. Well, I want to take that conversation a step forward and talk about something that tends to happen to every single one of us. Let's just be real, myself included at times. What do you do when self-sabotage kicks into play when you're selling? So we're going to simplify that down. My special guest today is Maria Baird, and she's a sales and mindset strategist, a coach, and a wealth creator. She's the creator of Irresistible Selling, which is an online group coaching program that helps creative business owners book high-paying clients quickly, grow their business, and design a life they love. You guys get this. Maria teaches the authentic selling and mindset strategies that helped her triple her income in less than a year and also book, oh, no big deal, Maria, $25 million in sales from companies like Target, Best Buy, Ulta, OfficeMax, and Hyatt. So obviously, this is our girl that we need to talk to today when it comes to sales. She's got a bachelor's degree in finance and resides in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona with her husband and her fur baby, Gia, and usually with a cold brew in hand. I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast today, Maria Baird. Hey, Maria.
Hey, how are you, Mary? So great to be here.
I am doing well, and I love when I get to talk to brilliant people like yourself all about sales. This is one of my topics that I like to geek out about. Now, Maria, you and I met earlier this year. I'd be remiss to not give a shout out to our mutual friend, Michelle, with Sage Wedding Pros. I spoke at the Be Sage conference at the beginning of this year. And, we got to talking about sales at this conference. And, really, I think it's kind of evolved this conversation of like, well, wait a second. Why is it that women seem to have self-sabotage when it comes to this stuff? What's the deal there?
It's, and it's so common. I think we've just been raised to be like quiet. Children are to be seen and not heard, and you should get along with everybody. Don't ever speak your mind. Everybody should just be happy and do whatever you can to make things easy for the other person. And by the way, don't ask for money. Don't ask for what you want. So we've been brought up to believe all these things, and it's ingrained in us. And so we have to sort of unlearn them.
It's lies, right? It's like,
Yes.
It's downright lies. So let's start to unravel that on this episode. First and foremost, why do you think women have a love-hate relationship when it comes to making money and even talking about money? What's that? Let's unpack that first.
Yeah, it's so universal. It doesn't even matter where they're from, but I think it's just a cultural thing. For so many years, women have been subservient to men. They've been told to just keep themselves down. Don't be too loud. Don't stand out. Don't toot your own horn. Mm-hmm. Don't brag about yourself, because that's terrible. I mean, that's braggadocious. You shouldn't do that. So I think it's just ingrained in us, and we just have to learn how to recognize that it's just a cultural thing that we've grown up with, and we need to knock it off, because there's so many good things that we can do in this world. And it starts with, for those of us that have a business, it starts with getting okay with making money and liking making money and loving making money, and looking at it not as a bad thing, but as your tool to do good in the world.
Yeah, and I feel like I've read a couple of books recently that started to change my own mindset when it comes to money as well, to think about money as an energy, right? Like that's
Yes.
it. That's all it is. It's an energy that you use to, money comes in, money goes out. It's okay.
Right.
Right?
It's a constant flow.
Yeah.
And I love thinking about it that way, because it sort of demystifies it and makes it not as energy charged. You know what I mean? It's not as, you don't get as upset about it, or it doesn't carry all of that that stuff that we've been carrying around all of our lives. So I love the idea that it's just an energy. And one of the things I teach my students is that money is just a tool. Like back in the olden days, people used to exchange cattle and sheep and goats, and because there wasn't a common way to exchange goods and services. Yeah. So it's just a piece of paper. It's only a piece of paper, but we've been brought up with all of these messages too, not only from our families, well-meaning families, right? Or society saying, oh, you have to work hard to make a lot of money, or, all these just messages that say that make money bad, make it hard, make you evil when you have money. And because we see examples of people that are misusing that, we automatically have a stereotype. Like the used car salesman stereotype. That's terrible. And in anything in life, no matter what industry you're in, there's good people and bad people, right? There's good examples of it and there's bad examples. So I hope to change how everyone looks at selling, because to me, everybody's selling every day of their lives, no matter what they do. Yeah. Because selling is just, you're selling your ideas, you're selling your opinion, you may not even be selling a product or service, but you're always selling something. Like your kids, they're constantly selling you. Mom, can I stay up later? Mom, can we go to Disney World? Mom, can we do this? Right? They're selling, and they're the best salespeople on the earth because they get what they want and they keep at it.
They're persistent.
They're persistent, yes, but they're never looked at as being bad, right? Because that's what they're doing. They're trying to get what they want. Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And I'm sure you believe this as well. Like when it comes to sales, having a solutions-oriented mindset also helps tremendously. Like what you offer, your solutions and products and services and what have you, helps other people. Then it's like literally you're giving a gift. It changes how you perceive sales altogether, right?
Oh my God, absolutely. To me, selling is a service. Yeah. And it's a sacred service because you have a gift and it's your job as a business owner to be able to communicate that gift to the other person. Yeah. It's not your job to make sure that you sell every client. That to me is the wrong attitude to go into it. It's more of a issue of, or a situation of, you've got someone that's coming to you because you have something that they think that they need. So I like to teach my clients to have a conversation and really understand what it is that they need and see if you can help them. And then if you can, it's your job to know how to articulate the value that you can provide. Right. So that's where your responsibility comes in. But to me, think of it more as like you're talking to a girlfriend, right? And she's asking you your opinion on something. And you're asking her questions to get more context and understand, well, why is this important to you? And what does this mean to you? And by asking those questions, you can then explain to her, whatever it is that she's asking about. It's really just a conversation to see if you can help someone, and if so, how.
Right. So why do you think it's so tough sometimes for women to also sell their expertise as a service? Like what's under that?
I think it comes down to not wanting to brag about yourself and not knowing how to sell. I remember when I started in sales, I knew nothing. Like I literally went in so green, I can't even tell you how green I was. I knew nothing about it. And here's the key thing was the man who hired me said, because I was saying to a mutual friend of mine who helped get me the interview, I said to my friend, I don't know anything about selling. And he said, he doesn't care. Finance, which is what he was looking for. He can teach you how to sell. Selling is a skill. It's something that you can learn. And so I learned how to sell. I didn't just pop out of my mom's womb knowing how to sell or being a natural born salesperson. It just wasn't me. I mean, I'm very introverted. And so selling actually was one of my ways to get out of my shell and to become a little bit more extroverted and have more self-confidence. But he said, I can teach you how to sell. And it's a skill that you can just learn. So it's not something you have to be born with.
Oh, and I think that's so interesting that you should say that you're an introvert because I never would have guessed that. So I think that that's also a misconception about, oh, I have to be super outgoing and extroverted to be able to be great at sales. You're telling me it's not true, right?
Not at all. In fact, I was that girl that if we were friends and we said, "Oh, let's meet at this bar at this time," if you were literally 3 minutes late, I would have been like hyperventilating,
Really?
just sitting there by myself. Like, who do I talk to? What do I say? What do I do? And so, literally, I went into sales partially because I wanted to make more money, and I wanted to be the master of my destiny, but also because I needed to get out of that shell and I wanted to grow that confidence. And it was literally baptism by fire. And I literally taught myself, like, how do I become confident? So I learned ways, I put it in my program. So I teach my clients, how do you become confident, especially when you're starting out and you don't have a lot of evidence, like you don't have a lot of clients under your belt. So how do you become confident? So I just took some of the things that I did over the years and translated that into my program and teach other business owners how to do that as well. But it starts with just understanding the value that you're providing and being confident in how you can help somebody. And that really has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. And I think for me, building confidence, take the analogy of learning how to ride a bike. Like the first time I ever rode a bike, yeah, of course, I probably skinned my knee and totally tumbled. But it comes down to repetition for me, like just doing something over and over and over and over and over, and then do it another 1,000 more times. Then it becomes like less scary, right? You're diffusing the power. And then it's, the confidence comes from practice, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, in my job, I had to do a lot of cold calling, which none of my clients have to do today. But back in the day, I had to do that. And no one on the earth likes cold calling. I mean, I don't think there's a person alive. But once you do it a few thousand times, you learn to take rejection, like let it roll off your back, right? It's just a numbers game at that point. So when people say sales is a numbers game, it's so true. I try to help people, a lot of business owners, if they lose a client, right, I teach them ways like how can you make it easy for them to come back, but also that it's a numbers game. Just one client loss is not the end of the world. And you learn more from the ones you lose than the ones you win. So I have them really try to take a look at that and say, what could I have done differently? Or maybe that wasn't the best client for me. And maybe there were signs that I could have seen a little bit earlier so that I could have qualified sooner and not have, go down that path.
Right. So let's break down self-sabotage. I mean, let's just dive into the meat of this. How would you define self-sabotage first and foremost when it comes to selling?
Self-sabotage to me, it's when you have a belief, and maybe it's easier with a story. So many years ago when I first started selling, I realized some of the signs that I saw were that my results were very inconsistent. And so like one month I do really well and the next month I wouldn't do so well. And I knew just in my bones, I'm like, something seems off. Like I feel resistance. So if you're feeling resistance or your results are not consistent, those are two classic signs that something's going on there. And it's self-sabotage. And what I realized was I was on my way to work and I had this download from the universe. And because I was saying, why is it that my results are so inconsistent? And literally like a lightning bolt, it hit me. And I thought, oh, my mindset is that sales is slimy. My mindset is that if I'm good at sales, people are going to think that I have no integrity or that I'm just trying to shove something down their throats and that I'm not a good person. And your brain will do anything it can to maintain homeostasis. So if I believe that I'm a good person, yet I want to be good at sales, it's going to self-sabotage because it has to hold on to the belief that I am a good person. So I realized I was sabotaging myself, whether it was conscious or unconscious. So that's the first thing, is to recognize what it is that you're doing and that you may have a belief under there, under the hood, that's not serving you.
Right.
And even if it's not, I don't necessarily like to classify it as bad or good, but it could be just that it's not serving you and it's not serving your goal of whatever that is.
Right.
And my goal was to be a successful salesperson, to make, a certain amount of money, to be self-sufficient, to be able to make it on my own and not have to rely on anyone. So to me, that was the realization. And so then what I started to do was I said, okay, well, if this is my belief, I need to change that belief, right? I need to shift that belief somehow. So I started looking for ways to shift that belief. And so I started talking to some of my coworkers and listening to their beliefs on things. And I realized, whoa, not everybody believes the same thing I believe. Like, they don't think that this is a problem. So why should I believe that too? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I started to look for social proof. That was another way. And I looked for examples of people that were good at sales, but not slimy, not your stereotypical salesperson. So those are just some of the things that I started doing. And literally, as I started to shift that, that's when everything changed for me. And that's when my results skyrocketed. That's when I tripled my income. Literally that year, I went from 5 figures to 6 figures, and then I stayed in the 6 figures every year that I was in sales.
Right.
And it literally, I believe, was because of that realization that here I have this underlying belief. I need to shift that there's more than one way to be a good salesperson. And thank goodness, at the time I had a manager who was so lovely, and he sat down with me and he said, Maria, you do not have to be that stereotypical person. There's lots of ways to be successful at sales. You don't have to be like those bad examples that you're looking at. They may be successful. They may make a lot of money, but you can sleep at night. You can be consistent with your beliefs and your integrity and still be really good at sales.
Totally.
And that's what I adopted. And that made all the difference, because I said, if I can't do that, I'm not going to sell. I'm going to go and do something else.
Well, and I think, again, it comes back to you and what feels good for you and what your core values are as a business owner and as your brand as well. So, yeah, I just want to unpack a lot of what you just said there, because I think that this is key. Once you understand the underlying thought process and beliefs in sales, and then starting to really reframe how you look at what is a salesperson. And I think that's the fascinating part about our brains, is that it's always looking for data points that prove what you believe, right? So it's just constantly going, okay, well, if sales is slimy, look, there's another data point that proves it. Oh, look, there's another one that proves it. Oh, look, there's another one. So yeah, I love what you said about just really trying to find other role models or other business owners out there that you felt were selling with authenticity, so that you can go, oh, actually, there's a data point that shows it's possible. Oh,
that's
okay,
right.
That's where it is, and that starts to help you prove again to your brain, oh yes, this is possible. I totally get it. So when it comes to setting financial goals, now let's say somebody's gone through that hurdle of getting their brain in the right place, but now we're talking about, oh gosh, I have to set goals financially. Like, what would you give as a good advice there to keep your self-sabotage at bay when you're setting your goals?
That's a really, really good question, because the $1 million question is always like, how high should I set the goals, right? I feel like you should make them realistic, but a little scary.
Yeah.
Right? So don't make them so unrealistic that your brain just says, there's no way, right? I can't see a way that could be possible. And then the other thing that I like to do with some of my clients, it really depends on their mindset. So like, I like to really understand where they're at. And what I'll tell them is I'll give them a challenge. And I did this just the last couple of weeks with my students, and a couple of them in particular that I knew needed to boost their rates, right? They were too low, and I needed them to get that win. And I wanted them to get that, that proof that they can do this, and that there's a lot of room to grow, because once you get to the other side of that, you're like, oh, I'm never going back, to what I was charging before. So I gave them a challenge to increase their rates. I think it was like $300, which was, as a percentage wise, that was a scarier amount for them. And they did it, and they actually booked clients, and they were like shocked, like, oh my God, I can do this. Right. So if you give yourself little increments like that, it makes it a little bit easier. And that way you're getting these little wins. And so then the next step seems a little bit easier. And then the next step seems easier. But I find that when you create a financial goal, it's good to create something that's just a little bit scary, but then break that down into what does that mean like on a monthly basis. Let's chunk this down so it's something that's doable and doesn't seem as scary, right?
Yeah. And just a side note to anyone who's listening, we did a bonus episode recently on how to set healthy stretch goals. So exactly what Maria's talking about. We'll put the link in the show notes for you guys if you want to take a deeper dive into that. It's 100%. You're dead on to it, Maria. Like you have to break it down into tiny bite-sized pieces, but also set stretch goals that do stretch you a bit out of your comfort zone. You know, I think it's so interesting about this and what I'm learning, even in the evolution of our podcast, however many episodes we've released so far, everything comes back to this little noggin of a brain up here. It does not matter what topic it is, whether it's healthy eating or, cash flow or sales. It all comes back to this brain of ours and how powerful it is that once we really, nourish our brains to believe in possibility, opportunities are boundless. And I know that sounds a bit woo, but it's so true. Every single time it comes back to this, right?
Absolutely. Anything you do in your life comes back to what's thinking up here, and you're usually your biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
Right. And one thing I've learned as a business owner and a coach over time is that there's something very powerful when you connect with someone, whether it's a coach or maybe a mastermind partner or anybody, right? When you connect with someone and that someone holds space for you and believes in you, that's super powerful.
Totally.
Like I came from this belief that I have to be like giving strategy after strategy after strategy, like physical, tangible things like that. But I've also kind of matured enough and learned enough with my clients that even having that faith in them and showing them that I believe in them and being strong for them, while they take on these little challenges that I'm giving them, that's very powerful for them because for them to believe in themselves means more than money, more than you can put a price tag on, right? Yes. And if I can give them the courage to take that baby step and maybe that next step and that next step, then maybe they're strong enough to do all kinds of things after that are like ginormous steps. So there's so much power in having that support system around you that will hold space for you and really just support you and believe in you, especially at the times when you're doubting yourself, because there are always those times, right? We always do that to ourselves. So it's really good to have that support structure.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And this is a perfect time to let you guys know that's listening. Maria has this 5-day challenge that she does called Book a Client in 5 days. It's a free little challenge, and we'll have the link in the show notes for you guys to click on it. I mean, you can take the challenge at any point. It starts throughout the year when you're ready. So, I mean, just having something as simple as that to lead you through a framework and process, maybe that's just as all you need to get over the hump of the stinking thinking in your brain and the self-sabotage that goes on of just like, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe this will help me. So I want to back up a little because you said something that very intriguing to me about selling. And I really think that there is something to this. So why is it smarter to talk about the benefits instead of the features when selling? Can you break that down for us?
Yeah. To me, features are the what, benefits are the why.
Okay.
So the feature, so let's say you're a wedding planner. A feature may be that you provide month of event coordination and you will do all these 49 things for the client.
Yep.
That's the what. That's the features. As a client, especially if you're in the wedding industry, for example, your clients typically have not been married before. They don't know what they don't know, for one thing. And they certainly don't know anything about what you do. Yeah. So to me, benefits are connecting the dots for your clients. It's helping them understand why that's important to them. Like, why should I care? Like one of the things that we did in sales, just being in a sales environment in the corporate world, they would always say, like, why should I care? Who cares? Why should I care about that? And if you always remember that, it'll help you connect those dots for your clients and say, okay, well, we provide, let's say you're a photographer and you have, let's say you provide a second shooter. Well, as a client, I don't know why a second shooter is important.
Yeah.
Like, why would
What does that even mean?
What does that even mean?
Yeah.
I don't even know what a second shooter means.
Yeah.
So if you explain to them, oh, well, you're going to want different angles of shots when you're getting ready in the morning. You're going to be here. Your fiance is going to be here. So you're going to want photographers in both places.
Yeah.
You're going to want to capture all those moments because sometimes one angle is better than the other, whatever. So when you connect the dots for your clients, you build value with them. Mm-hmm. And the more value you build, the more money your clients will pay. Mm-hmm. And the biggest problem I see with most business owners and even salespeople, I see this, they talk so much about features. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, then you just sound like every other business owner that potential client may be speaking to. And when everybody sounds alike, guess what? You give them no choice but to make a decision on price.
That's it.
So you're driving them to make a price decision because you are not connecting the dots. You are not sounding different from your competitors, and you're not helping them. The biggest thing is you're just not helping them understand the value of what you're doing, right? They've never been married before, or, fill in the blank for what they do. Let's say you're a web designer and you're creating a new website for somebody. Explain to them what your strength in building websites will do for them. Yeah. Why will that be a benefit for them? Connect those dots, and that will make your value skyrocket. It'll help your clients stop asking for discounts. Mm-hmm. And it'll help you start booking your higher packages and not just your base packages, because that's where someone said their budget was.
Right. And I think that what the key part of this message is when you get crystal clear on your ultimate ideal clients' biggest pains, biggest fears, biggest worries, biggest vision for whatever it is that they're hiring you to do, whether it's a wedding or photography or otherwise, that's the benefits. Can you solve those things? Can you squash the fear? Can you save them time? Can you save them money? Can you da-da-da-da-da-da-da? That's the bit. I think what I see a lot with self-sabotage when it comes to selling in this particular realm is we're very quick to just say, well, here are the bullet points of what you get. Boop, 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 boop. And then it's like, oh, and then you throw in some jargon because you're like, wow, that makes me sound really official doing whatever thing I do. But the client doesn't know, like you said, a second shooter. I don't know what that means. Like, so they go, oh, I don't get this. You're not talking in their language. That's the biggest mistake.
Right. And then what you're also doing is inviting them to compare you to somebody else. And they'll say, this planner offers me these 17 things, but this planner over here offers me 22 things. I'm going with this planner. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you don't want them to compare apples to apples because you're different. You're completely different from everybody else. Even if you are in a profession that there's a million other people like you, there's nobody really like you. Right. So you need to be clear on how to articulate that value so that you can stand out from your competition and connect with your client on an emotional level, right? And not just, here are the physical things I can do for you, but here's what it really means to you, which is why it's important to understand really what your client wants. Not just what they're telling you they want, but dig deeper. Why is that important? I always have my clients say, why is that important to you? Like, okay, you want to have a great wedding. Great. Okay. Why is that important to you? And really peel back the layers of that onion and find out, what does it really matter? And I remember even with my own wedding, like none of the vendors asked me those questions. None of them asked me what was important to me. And had they done that, they would have made a lot more money because they would have uncovered the real emotional reason that I wanted to have a great wedding. And to me, it all came back to my father and sharing that day with him because I knew that he might not be there because he had gotten very ill. But nobody went down that road. Nobody asked me those questions to really dig into the emotional benefits that I was looking to get from that day. Or again, no matter what you do as a business owner, there are some emotional benefits that your clients want, not just a pretty website or a great wedding or, a great coaching experience. There's some deeper benefit. You unravel that, and that's where the money is.
And that's the secret to long-lasting clients who turn into raving fans who refer other amazing people just like them to you. Yeah, that's it. That's
Absolutely.
it. Okay, let's go down the path of the wedding planner because we've been on a roll with this. Let's use a wedding planner as a case study. When somebody, like let's say she is is in the process of selling a real luxury high-end client, and maybe she doesn't have all that experience of working in that echelon of a budget or that type of client. What are the self-sabotage things that happen to her in those moments? Like, what are her key mistakes that she tends to make there?
I think what's going on up here is the biggest thing, right? It's feeling like, oh, I don't know what to do, or I'm not worthy of this client, or I've never sold a client that has this much money before.
Yeah.
And we tend to put people on a pedestal, right, based on their bank account. And that's not always the thing to do, right? Because it makes you feel inferior. It comes across in how you act and how you feel and everything that emanates from you. So the first thing is to really understand that they are people. They put their socks on one at a time, just like we do, and they're regular people.
Yeah.
That said, it's important regardless of whether they have money or whether they're X or Y or Z. It doesn't matter what that thing is, but in this case, if they have a lot of money, it's just important, as it is with any other thing, to really get down to the bottom of what's important to them.
Yeah.
Right. And for people that have a lot of money, I have a lot of clients who do like celebrity events and weddings and things like that. For people like that, it's important to understand what's typically important to people in that world. Usually, secrecy is important, and confidentiality, and a high level of professionalism, a high level of touch and white glove service, and things like that they're going to be used to, because that's the service level that they've been used to. So you have to make sure that your systems are in place. So going back to simplifying, make sure you've got systems that are simplifying things, but also automating things and making sure that nothing falls through the cracks and it doesn't seem like you're just winging it, right? When you have systems in place, even something as simple as a scheduler, right? There's so many business owners that don't even have a scheduler, so they're going back and forth scheduling things. When you have systems like that, even something as simple as that, it shows your client, oh, I'm a professional. I take myself seriously. I'm a professional business, and this is how we conduct business with tools and systems. And we've done it so many times that we actually have a system in place. So it really shows your client on multiple levels that you're a professional, you got this, and that you can handle whatever it is that they throw at you.
Yeah. And just to clarify what Maria's saying there, a scheduler is a widget that links your calendar to your appointment schedule. So we use Schedule Once, and it's called Once Hub, and we'll put a link in the show notes for our tool so you guys can check that out. And it's brilliant because it links my Google Calendar to the abilities for people to book in time into my calendar. And so it's just immediate. And so if somebody contacts me in the middle of the night, it's immediate for them too, and it doesn't require me to do anything. I'm asleep. It sends the emails, it sends the reminders. It is brilliant. Another great one out there is called Calendly as well. So I'll put those links in the show notes for people. It's definitely something you want to integrate into your business. Tell us then, what are a couple of simple, practical ways we can retrain our brain to squash this tendency to self-sabotage? I mean, especially as a business owner, what else could we be doing to stop this when it happens?
I think the first thing is self-aware. Being self-aware and really getting a handle on what messages you're talking about, what are you saying to yourself on a regular basis, right? And being able to really take control of that. It takes a lot of self-discipline, right? Because let's be honest, mindset is a practice. It's not something you master overnight. I could give you lots of tips and tricks that will help you, but it doesn't mean that you're going to master it overnight, because, you've heard the phrase before, new level, new devil, right? So you might have a belief that, oh, I'll never be able to, to hit six figures, right? So let's say I help you with that and you get to six figures. Well, guess what? Now you have another limiting belief that you need to reframe. So it's just a practice. So to me, being self-aware is the first thing. And so really keeping tabs on what is it that I'm thinking, number one. And number two, really being mindful about, all right, how am I going to reframe that, right? If this is not in congruence with my goals, if this is causing me to self-sabotage, then I need to really be an adult, put my big girl panties on and say, how can I change this? Because it's not serving me.
Yeah.
Right. So how can I look for other people that are an example of what I'm looking for, that are a good example. So look for that social proof. And today with social media, that's so easy to do. I mean, with all the avenues we have to find people and meet people and see what people are doing, it becomes easy to do that.
Yeah.
So that to me is one of the biggest things that you can do, is just be mindful of it and then have a system. I actually teach my whole formula for doing that in my program, but one of the ways is looking for social proof. And when you see that it's possible for somebody else, it makes it possible for you too.
Yeah, I love that. And, a book that I'm actually diving into right now is by Gabrielle Bernstein, May Cause Miracles. And it's a 42-day experiment. Every single day, she gives you this morning intention and then evening intention that helps you start to really systematically change your brain on how you think about your body, how you think about yourself versus other people, and conflict management, all these things. And it's such a fascinating book, and it totally is in line with what you're talking about today. What does Gabby say? It's like fear is false. Oh gosh, what is it?
False evidence appearing real.
That's it. False evidence appearing real. I mean, that's all fear is when you break it all down. I'll put a link in the show notes for you guys to check that book out as well.
You're making me want to read it. I'm going to go get it as soon as we're done here.
Oh, it's so good. It is so good. Maria, previously you shared a story about your dad, and I'd love for you to share this as well, because this is another data point, social proof of somebody who is selling with authenticity and love, and not in a sleazy, icky, pushy kind of way. Can you tell us about your dad when you were growing up as a kid?
Yeah, I'll try to do it and not get too emotional about it, because he passed away a few years ago. Yeah. But he was an insurance agent. And, as a kid, it's funny, I came from an Italian family. And so my dad wasn't Italian, but my mom is. And so we have a large extended family, which means big dinners, lots of cousins, lots of people talking and everything, lots of food. And I remember thinking, we had so many of these dinners, so many of these get-togethers. I mean, there's always family around. Never once did I ever hear him talk about insurance with anybody. Yeah. Right? It wasn't like your kind of stereotypical, like somebody that's like trying to sell all of their relatives, on something. Never heard him talk about it. In fact, my father was extremely introverted, extremely quiet, reserved, not braggadocious man at all. I like to think he's like one of the last like real gentlemen, and he grew up, in a difficult scenario. He was working from the time he was like, I think 10 or 11 years old, and then giving that money to his mother, because they didn't have a lot of money. And so he was completely self-made. And, so going back to just the family, I never heard him talk about insurance, yet he had every person in my family insured. Everyone. But he didn't have to sell it. Yeah. He sold himself. People knew that they could trust him. And he did things for his clients back then that people would have thought even then or now is crazy. But he took care of his clients on such a level that is unheard of, that he had, by the time he retired, he had the grandchildren of his original clients insured. Because literally they would call, in fact, here's an example, like he would have his home phone number on his business cards. Nobody, even back then, did that. No one. Yeah. So we used to have one of those little pads, like while you were out. Do you remember those back in the day? I don't even remember how young I was. I was probably like 10 years old. I would take phone calls. Sometimes people call at 10, 11 o'clock at night. I would take phone calls. And I would take messages for him because somebody would say, hey, is Wayne there? And I'd be like, he's out or whatever. Can I take a message? yep, we got in an accident. And I would say, okay, what kind of car do you have? What's your number? And then I'd give him the message and he'd take care of them in the morning. But literally, he treated people in a way that I don't think you see today. And it really influenced how I treat my clients and how I care about my clients, because they are family to me and I want them to be successful. So to me, it's not about the money. It's more about I'm making a difference and I'm helping them create a life for themselves and become self-sufficient, and be able to sell and feed their families and support the causes that are important to them or do whatever it is that they went into business for in the first place. So my dad really was instrumental in all of that.
And such a beautiful story. And again, it's just a reminder to anyone that's listening right now, when you think about sales, it doesn't have to be pushy. It doesn't have to be icky and sleazy and all the scary things. There is a better way. And I mean, I love that he is a shining example in his life and his legacy and has that's influenced you in the work that you're doing as well. So beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So there's a few questions I like to ask every guest as they come on to the podcast. And just by the way, if you guys are intrigued by what Maria is talking about, you can find her online at mariabayer.com. And do you hang out on Instagram the most? Is that where people can connect with you the most?
I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. So I have a Facebook group as well as my Facebook business page.
Perfect. We'll put all those links in the show notes so people can find her online and you can connect to her brilliance as well. So Maria, tell us, what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system right now?
Well, ironically enough, I'm reading Giftology, which I realized that you just recently interviewed him.
Oh, he is so good. It is such a great book. Yeah.
But it so reinforced all of the things that like my father had sort of taught me, not in so many words, more in just the actions of taking care of your clients. Like that's the underlying belief system I have, is take care of your clients, take care of the people who support you, right? Just like family first, right? Mm-hmm. Family, take care of your family. This is my extended family. So I love what he talks about and about extreme generosity and the way he looks at gifting to the people that are important to you and the people that are the reason that you're in business, right? So he gave me so many great ideas for things that I can do to even enhance my program even more and, my ambassador program that I have. But I think everyone should listen to that. Well, I listen to everything on Audible. I don't know if anybody else does that, but I love listening because I love listening when I'm in my car. Otherwise, I'm reading a book and I'm falling asleep in bed. But that's how I get all my books read. Yeah. So I just think it helps you look at your clients and your partners in a completely different light that I think is often lost in today's very digital world. Right? Yeah. And it's more old school, and that really tugs at my heart because that's kind of how I do business, is a little more old school.
Totally. So the book she's talking about is called Giftology. It's by John Ruhlin. We actually interviewed him on episode 58 on the podcast, and it is so good. It's solid gold. So both the book, we'll click that in the show notes, and also the link to the other episode with John. It's so great. So tell us, who is one person in your network that you feel is just up to brilliant things right now, and that you think that we should shine a little spotlight on and potentially interview on a future episode on the podcast?
Oh, there's so many people, but one that comes to mind, who I actually just spoke with recently, is Amanda Boleyn from She Did It Her Way. And she and I met several years ago, back when I was living in Chicago, and we met through a mutual friend. And we just became fast friends, and she's got a podcast of her own, and she's really forging her way, just blazing a new path, I think. She has a corporate background, so I really connected with her on that because I have a corporate background. So it's interesting when you make that transition from corporate to entrepreneurship. Yeah. But she's really such a supporter of women, and she's really helping women create businesses. How can you leave your 9-to-5 and create a business? So I think what she's doing is so needed. But she's also just very much a connector, very generous. Like I reached out to her about a tool I was thinking about using, and I know that she was using it. So she was so generous with explaining to me what she liked about it. And if you have any other questions, let me know. I mean, she's super busy, just like all of us, but she makes the time.
It goes one step further. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love people that are generous that way and connectors and not, they just don't hoard it all for themselves. And I just think she's a lovely person to begin with and great sense of humor. So she's really fun too. So I think you'd love her.
Ah, great. Perfect. Well, we will link her in the show notes also and reach out to her very, very soon. So Maria, I believe that gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what's one thing you're grateful for right now in your life?
I am grateful for my husband and for being able to live. We just recently moved last summer to Arizona. It was a goal of ours for a long, long time. And I get to look out the window at sunshine all the time. And even though I love my hometown of Chicago and it will always, always be home, I love the sunshine. So and I know that it makes me happier and it makes me, more productive. And then in turn, I can give more to my clients. So I'm so happy for his support because he's always been my biggest supporter, no matter what, how bad of a day I'm having or how much I'm doubting myself. When we let that stuff in your head start to take over, he's always there to say, you got this, you're fabulous and you're mine. And I love you. He's great.
You're making me blush.
Yeah.
Breaking my heart here. He sounds like a superstar. So again, a reminder to everybody that's listening, you can find Maria Baird online at mariabaird.com. And again, the links are in the show notes for where to find her on Instagram and Facebook. Don't forget also in the show notes, you can click on there to take part in her free 5-day challenge that helps you book a client in 5 days, which, who doesn't need a little kick in the butt to, get their sales back into the track and all that. Also, there is a link in the show notes for her Irresistible Selling program. It's on a wait list currently, but when that opens back up, then you'll be the first to know about that as well. So my final question for you today is this, Maria. And again, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom and all of your brilliance with us, because I feel like this is such an important topic for us as business owners and us as women. So somebody somewhere out in the world right now is listening to this episode and she's like, well, yeah, this all sounds well and good, but I'm scared to hit send on this great big proposal that has lots and lots of zeros behind it. What's one thing that you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her along the way?
Oh, that's a great question. So if she's looking to hit send, I would say, trust yourself. You can do it and you totally got this. You've got literally nothing to lose and everything to gain. So just believe in yourself.
Maria, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you.
I've had so much fun. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.